The gas station camera did not just show my sister buying Dad's lottery ticket. It showed my father standing beside her. That was impossible, because by the time the ticket was claimed, Dad had already been dead for 9 days. I remember sitting in my lawyer's office, watching the security footage on a small laptop screen. The room smelled like coffee and printer paper. Outside the window, traffic moved through Columbus like any other Tuesday morning. Ordinary people, going ordinary places, while my family's entire history cracked open in front of me. My sister Rachel stood at the counter in her cream-colored coat, calm as ever, her hair pinned neatly at the back of her neck. She smiled at the clerk, slid a 20 across the counter, and pointed to the lottery machine. And there, reflected in the glass of the beverage cooler behind her, was my father. Not a ghost, not a shadow, my father, wearing the brown work jacket he always kept in the mudroom, holding the old red thermos I had packed for him every winter morning when I was in high school, looking tired, but very much alive. So why had Rachel told the state lottery commission that Dad gave her the winning ticket 2 days before he died? Why had she filed the claim alone? And why had the gas station owner called me, not Rachel, after seeing the news? Good day, dear listeners. It's Nora again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please subscribe to my channel and like this video. And also, let me know in the comments which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. My name is Elise Harper. At the time everything happened, I was 42 years old, a high school history teacher in Columbus, Ohio. I taught juniors and seniors, mostly American history and civics, and I believed in evidence long before I needed it to save myself. In my classroom, I used to tell my students that history is not just dates and wars, history is receipts, letters, court records, photographs, tax rolls, names written in margins. The truth rarely arrives as thunder. More often, it sits quietly in a file folder until someone patient enough finally reads it. I did not know then that I was preparing myself for my own family. My father, Thomas Harper, was not a rich man. He worked 31 years as a maintenance supervisor for a hospital system. He could fix a boiler, patch drywall, rebuild a porch step, and make a grocery budget stretch farther than anyone I knew. He lived in the same little white house in Grove City where my sister and I grew up. The gutters sagged, the kitchen floor squeaked near the sink, and the maple tree in the front yard had roots that lifted the sidewalk like old bones. Dad was quiet, not cold, just private. After Mom died, he became even quieter, like part of him had walked into another room and shut the door behind him. Rachel was the older daughter by 3 years. She became a financial consultant, married well, divorced better, and lived in a polished condo downtown with glass walls and furniture nobody looked comfortable sitting on. She always had a way of saying kind things that somehow made you feel corrected. Elise, you're too sentimental. Elise, Dad needs practical help, not feelings. Elise, you don't understand how money works. Maybe she was right about some of that. I was not ambitious in the way Rachel was. I had a mortgage, a 10-year-old Toyota, a classroom full of students who called me Miss Harper, and a small garden behind my townhouse where I grew basil, tomatoes, and stubborn hope. When Dad got sick, I handled the ordinary things: doctor appointments, soup, pharmacy runs, laundry. I graded essays at his kitchen table while he watched old baseball games with the sound low. Rachel handled what she called the serious things: insurance papers, retirement accounts, bank conversations, forms with small print. At the time, I was grateful. That is how betrayal often begins, not with suspicion, but with relief. Dad's illness moved slowly at first. Some days he was strong enough to sit on the porch and complain about the neighbors' wind chimes. Other days, he slept so deeply I checked his breathing from the hallway. In my teacher's mind, I kept trying to organize it into units: diagnosis, treatment, care plan, decline. But life does not follow a syllabus. There are no neat chapters when someone you love is leaving you. 3 weeks before he died, Dad asked me to drive him to Miller's Gas and Grocery on Stringtown Road. It was a cold, bright afternoon, the kind where the sun looks warm until you step outside. "You need anything?" I asked. He was sitting in the passenger seat, looking thinner than the coat around him. Just want to get out, he said. Inside the gas station, he bought coffee, a pack of mints, and 5 lottery tickets. Dad had played the same numbers for years: Mom's birthday, our birthdays, the house number, and the year he met her. He called it foolish fun. He never spent much, never chased anything, just bought a ticket once or twice a week and tucked it into the metal recipe box where Mom used to keep coupons. Rachel hated it. "Dad, lotteries are taxes on desperation," she once told him. He had smiled and said, "Then I guess I'm donating to public education." I remember that because I laughed, and Rachel did not. The first warning sign came 2 days after that gas station trip. I was at Dad's house, sorting clean towels when Rachel walked in without knocking. She had a key, of course, but she rarely came by unless there was paperwork involved. She wore a navy suit and carried a leather folder against her chest. "Where's Dad?" she asked. "Asleep." "For how long?" I looked up. "Hello to you too," she sighed. "I have a meeting in 30 minutes. I need him to sign something." "What something?" "Beneficiary cleanup." Nothing dramatic. That phrase stayed with me. Beneficiary cleanup. It sounded like a janitorial task, not a legal one. "He's exhausted," I said. "Bring it tomorrow." Rachel's expression softened in that practiced way of hers. "Elise, I know you're emotional, but Dad asked me to organize things. You don't want chaos after he's gone." She was very good at making resistance sound like immaturity. I let her go into his room. I stood in the hallway and heard her voice, low and gentle, and Dad's voice, weaker. A pen clicked, paper moved. Then Rachel came out and slipped the folder under her arm. "What did he sign?" I asked. She kissed my cheek, which she almost never did. "You'll thank me later." That was the first sentence I wrote down. Not because I thought I would need it in court. Not yet. I wrote it down because teachers notice language. We hear when a student's explanation changes, when a word does not belong, when a polished answer has been rehearsed. Rachel had sounded rehearsed. After Dad died, the house filled with casseroles, flowers, and relatives who wanted to tell me how peaceful he looked. Rachel handled the funeral arrangements. She chose the expensive casket, then told me we would split the cost because appearances matter. I did not argue. Grief had made me slow. 9 days after the funeral, my phone buzzed while I was in my classroom during planning period. It was Rachel. "Elise," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was something bright underneath it. "I need you to sit down." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Dad left me a lottery ticket." I waited. "It won," she said. "How much?" A pause. "After taxes, around 18 million. I looked at the student essays stacked on my desk. One was about the Reconstruction amendments. A red pen lay across it like a small wound. "What do you mean he left you a ticket?" "He gave it to me before he passed. He said he wanted me to handle it wisely." I remember turning toward the window. The soccer field outside was empty, the winter grass dull and flat. "Dad gave you an $18 million lottery ticket and didn't mention it to me? He probably didn't want to upset you." That sentence was so ridiculous I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "When did he give it to you?" 2 days before he died. Dad was barely awake 2 days before he died. "Elise." There it was again. My name used as a warning, she continued. "I know this is emotional, but legally, possession matters." He handed it to me. I already spoke with counsel, not a lawyer, counsel. Like we were already opponents. I sat there for a long time after she hung up. The thing about teaching history is that you learn patterns. Powerful people do not always lie loudly. Often, they simply move faster than everyone else. They file first, speak first, frame the story first. By the time the truth catches up, the room already has labels on it. Rachel filed the claim with the State Lottery Commission that same week. The local news picked it up 2 days later. "Columbus financial consultant wins millions from late father's gift." There was Rachel in a pale blouse, speaking softly about Dad's generosity. She said he had always believed in her judgment. She said she planned to honor his memory. She said family was everything. I watched the clip once, then I turned it off and vomited in my kitchen sink. Not because of the money. I need you to understand that. I had lived without millions my whole life and could have continued doing so. What made me sick was seeing Dad used as a prop in a story he had not written. The discovery came from a man named Mr. Kessler, the owner of Miller's Gas and Grocery. He called me on a Thursday evening while I was making tea. I almost did not answer because the number was unfamiliar. "Is this Elise Harper?" he asked. "Yes, my name is Aaron Kessler. I knew your dad a little. He came into my store for years." My hand tightened around the mug. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, "but I saw your sister on the news." I closed my eyes. He cleared his throat. "There's something about that ticket that doesn't sit right with me." I did not speak. He continued. "The winning ticket was sold at my store. I checked the system after the lottery people contacted us. Your sister did buy tickets that day. But your father was with her." The kitchen seemed to tilt. "What day?" He gave me the date. I whispered. "That was 11 days before he died." "Yes, ma'am." "Are you sure? I have cameras." That was the first time I felt fear change shape. It did not make me panic. It made me still. Mr. Kessler said he had hesitated to get involved. He did not want trouble. Rachel had already sent someone to ask whether the store kept footage and how long it was retained. A polite man in a dark overcoat, not from the Lottery Commission, not from any law office Mr. Kessler recognized. "He offered to pay me for a copy," Mr. Kessler said quietly. "Did you give it to him?" "No. I told him my system was down." "Was it?" "No." I sat at my kitchen table with the tea cooling in front of me. The porch light flickered. Outside, a car passed slowly, headlights moving across the blinds. "Why call me?" I asked. Mr. Kessler was quiet for a moment. "Because your dad always asked about my son after his accident," he said. "Every single time." I figured I owed him the decency of telling someone. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not a flashy one, not someone with billboards. I called Marianne Vale, a probate and civil litigation attorney, recommended by a retired teacher from my school district. Marianne's office was on the second floor of an old brick building above a dental clinic. Her waiting room had faded chairs, live plants, and no television. I liked that immediately. She listened without interrupting. That also mattered. When I finished, she leaned back and folded her hands. "Do not confront your sister again," she said. "I wasn't planning to." "Good. Do not accuse her in writing. Do not post anything. Do not talk to reporters. Do not sign anything she sends you. From now on, you preserve evidence." I nodded. It felt like being handed a lesson plan for survival. Marianne took out a yellow legal pad. "We need the footage. We need the lottery claim documents. We need your father's medical records for the days around the alleged gift. We need any estate documents your sister had him sign. We need bank statements. We need witnesses. And we need to know whether that ticket was purchased by him, by her, or jointly." Does that matter? It can matter a great deal. I thought of Dad standing beside Rachel at the counter, reflected in cooler glass, like history, refusing to stay buried. Marianne looked at me carefully. "Elise, there may be more here than a lottery ticket." I did not understand what she meant until 3 days later, when I found the envelope behind the furnace. Dad's house was quiet when I went there that Saturday. Rachel had not started cleaning it out yet, though she had already suggested selling it quickly because empty homes attract problems. I went to collect Dad's old recipe box. I wanted the coupon box, the lottery stubs, the tiny ordinary archive of his habits. The basement smelled like dust, concrete, and old laundry detergent. I pulled the metal shelves away from the furnace to look for a box of Christmas ornaments Mom had labeled in blue marker. That was when I saw the envelope taped behind a loose panel. It was yellowed at the edges, sealed with packing tape, and addressed in Dad's handwriting. "For Elise, if things get confusing." I sat down on the basement steps before I opened it. Inside were 3 things: a photocopy of a lottery ticket, a handwritten note, and a bank statement from an account I had never seen. The note was short. "Ellie, if Rachel says I gave her everything, don't believe it without checking. I tried to fix old mistakes, but I may have made new ones. Ask about Mom's Cedar account. Ask about the house title. I am tired. I am sorry. Dad, my father had not called me Ellie since I was 12. I read the note so many times the words began to blur. The bank statement showed an account at Cedar Mutual Credit Union with a balance of $486, 210.47. Dad had never mentioned it. Mom had never mentioned it. The account listed two names, Thomas Harper and Margaret Harper. Family trust. I did not know what a family trust was doing attached to a credit union account, and I did not know why Rachel had told me Dad's estate consisted of the house, one checking account, and a used pickup truck. I took photographs of everything exactly where I found it before touching the envelope further. Then I placed each item in a clean folder and drove straight to Marianne's office, even though it was closed. I sat in the parking lot and emailed her the photos from my phone. Then I drove home and sat in my car for 40 minutes. Fear is strange. It does not always make you small. Sometimes it makes the world painfully clear. The steering wheel under your hands, the hum of the heater, the receipt on the floor mat, the exact moment when you realize grief has been used against you. That night, I did what I had taught my students to do. I made a timeline. I used a legal pad and a black pen, dates in the left column, events in the middle, questions on the right. Dad's diagnosis. Rachel gains access to paperwork. Dad buys tickets at Miller's. Rachel visits with folder. Dad dies. Rachel files lottery claim. News story. Mr. Kessler calls. Envelope found. Then I added a second page titled, Things Rachel Said. You'll thank me later. Dad wanted me to handle it wisely. Possession matters. I already spoke with counsel. Empty homes attract problems. By midnight, I was not crying anymore. I was working. Marianne moved quickly but carefully. She sent preservation letters to Miller's Gas and Grocery, the State Lottery Commission, Cedar Mutual Credit Union, Dad's bank, Rachel's attorney, and the funeral home. Preservation letters sound polite, but they carry weight. They say, do not destroy anything. Someone is watching the record now. Mr. Kessler gave the footage directly to Marianne. The original file showed Dad and Rachel entering the store together. Dad selected the numbers on the slip. Rachel paid because Dad's hands were shaking. The clerk printed the tickets and placed them on the counter. Dad picked them up first. Then Rachel took the receipt. A small action. Almost nothing, but small things become important when millions of dollars are attached to them. Marianne also obtained the lottery claim paperwork. Rachel had signed a statement saying Dad gifted her the winning ticket on the afternoon of February 8, 2 days before his death, at his home, in gratitude for her financial guidance. Dad's hospice nurse signed an affidavit saying that on February 8, Dad was heavily medicated, confused, and unable to hold a pen or sustain a conversation longer than a few seconds. That was the first wall that cracked. The second crack came from Cedar Mutual. The Mom's Cedar account Dad mentioned was part of a trust created after my mother received a settlement from a workplace accident years before she died. The money was not enormous by the standards of wealthy people, but to us it was life-changing. Mom had intended it to protect both daughters equally and keep the house from being sold under pressure. The trust named Dad as trustee after her death. After Dad, Rachel and I were supposed to become co-beneficiaries. But 6 months before Dad died, documents had been filed removing me as beneficiary and naming Rachel as sole successor. My signature appeared on a waiver. I had never signed it. Marianne showed it to me across her desk. My name sat there in blue ink. Slanted wrong, the E too sharp, the Harper cramped. I stared at it with a feeling I can only describe as cold recognition. Teachers know handwriting. We see hundreds of signatures a week. We know when a student signs for a parent. We know when pressure makes letters change. We know when a name is being performed instead of written. That is not mine, I said. Marianne nodded once. I thought you'd say that. The next week, Rachel called. I let it go to voicemail. Then she texted, "We need to talk like adults." I forwarded it to Marianne. Then Rachel called again from a different number while I was leaving school. I answered without thinking. "Elise," she said, "this has gone far enough." I stood beside my Toyota in the staff parking lot. Students were getting into buses. A whistle blew from the athletic field. What has? You know exactly what. Calling lawyers. Digging into Dad's private affairs, harassing business owners. I haven't harassed anyone. Her voice softened. That was always the dangerous part. I know grief makes people irrational. You're a teacher. You've never dealt with significant assets. Dad trusted me because I know how to protect money. Did he trust you to forge my signature? Silence. I regretted saying it immediately, not because it was false, but because Marianne had told me not to confront her. Rachel recovered quickly. You need to be very careful making accusations like that. I am being careful. No, you're being emotional. There's a difference. A bus pulled away from the curb, diesel fumes hanging in the cold air. Rachel continued. My attorney is prepared to demonstrate that you were aware of the estate plan, but I would rather not embarrass you publicly. Dad would hate that. There it was. Dad used as a leash. I have to go, I said. Elise, listen to me. I can give you something. A generous amount. Quietly. Enough to pay off your mortgage. But if you keep attacking me, there may be nothing left for either of us except legal bills. How generous? She paused, probably mistaking my question for interest. $200,000 from $18 million and a hidden trust she had taken completely. I looked across the parking lot at the school building, at the classroom windows, glowing under fluorescent lights. For 20 years I had taught teenagers that citizenship required courage, that rights meant little without records, that silence helps the person already holding power. I said, send it through your lawyer. Then I hung up. The offer became evidence. Marianne was pleased, though she did not smile. She knows there is exposure, she said. People who believe they own the truth do not offer hush money. The stronger evidence came from a notary named Paul Whitman. His stamp appeared on the waiver removing me from the trust. Marianne's investigator found him operating a small mobile notary service out of Dayton. At first he claimed everything had been proper. Then Marianne subpoenaed his journal. That was when the dates betrayed him. The journal showed my signature notarized at 3:20 p.m. on a Wednesday at Dad's house. At 3:20 p.m. that Wednesday, I was teaching 5th period civics. 27 students were present. My principal had observed the lesson. There were sign-in logs, hallway cameras, and a lesson plan uploaded to the district system at 3:08 p.m. A whole classroom became my alibi. When I saw that, I almost laughed from the strange poetry of it. My ordinary life, the one Rachel dismissed as small and sentimental, had left a clean record behind. Attendance sheets, observation notes, timestamps, teenagers writing about due process, while my sister's lie was being notarized 60 miles away. Marianne filed a civil complaint, contesting the trust changes, alleging fraud, undue influence, conversion, and unjust enrichment. She also filed an objection with the Lottery Commission to delay final disbursement of the prize pending litigation. Rachel's lawyer responded aggressively. He claimed I was jealous, financially unstable, and attempting to exploit my father's death. He wrote that Rachel had been Dad's primary advisor and trusted fiduciary. He attached photographs of Rachel beside Dad's hospital bed, Rachel holding his hand, Rachel organizing papers at the kitchen table. Not one photograph showed the nights I slept in Dad's recliner because he was afraid to be alone. That hurt more than I expected. Legal language can be sterile, but it still cuts. Then one evening, Rachel came to my house. It was raining, a thin March rain that made the porch boards shine. I saw her through the front window before she knocked. She wore a beige trench coat and carried no umbrella. Her face looked tired for the first time. I opened the door but did not invite her in. We should not be speaking directly, I said. She gave a small smile. Always the rule follower. No, just learning. Elise, please. That word almost worked. Please. It sounded like childhood for half a second, like shared bedrooms and cereal bowls and Mom telling us to stop fighting. Then Rachel looked past me, into my small living room, at the thrifted lamp, the stack of student essays, the mug on the side table. You don't want this life forever, she said softly. I felt something inside me close. This is my life, I said. You know what I mean. I can make things easier for you. I was going to. Before you got lawyers involved, you were going to give me what already belonged to me. Her eyes sharpened. You have no idea what belonged to you. Then explain it. For a moment, Rachel looked genuinely sad. Dad was not who you think he was. That stopped me. What does that mean? She shook her head. He made promises he couldn't keep. Mom did too. I cleaned up the mess. I carried things you never had to carry. By forging my name, I protected the family. From whom? Her voice dropped. from you making emotional decisions. There it was again, the oldest lesson she had tried to teach me, that my feelings made me unqualified to know the truth. I looked at my sister, standing under the porch light, rain in her hair, and I realized she did not think of herself as a thief. That was what made her dangerous. She thought she was the only adult in every room. She believed control was the same as love. I'm not discussing this without Marianne, the first said. Rachel's expression hardened. You think a teacher's salary can fight this? She asked. No, I said, but evidence can. For the first time, she looked afraid. The deposition happened 6 weeks later in a conference room downtown. There was no judge, no jury, no dramatic wooden bench, just lawyers, a court reporter, pitchers of water, exhibits in binders, and my sister sitting across the table in a charcoal suit. Movies make justice look like thunder. In real life, it often sounds like paper sliding across the table. Rachel began calmly. She said Dad gave her the ticket as a gift. She said he trusted her more because she had financial expertise. She said I was overwhelmed by grief and had misunderstood his intentions. She said the trust changes reflected Dad's concerns, that I would mismanage funds through emotional generosity. Marianne let her talk. That was something I came to admire. A good lawyer does not always attack. Sometimes she builds a room and lets the lie walk around until it cannot find a door. Marianne asked, Miss Harper, when did your father give you the winning ticket? February 8. Where? At his home. Was anyone else present? No. Was he alert? Yes. Fully aware? Yes. Did he explain why he was giving it to you? He said I would know what to do. Marianne opened a binder. Exhibit 12 is the hospice nurse's medication log from February 8. It indicates your father received morphine at 9:00 a.m., 1:00 p.m., and 5:00 p.m. It also notes confusion, agitation, and inability to answer orientation questions. Were you aware of that? Rachel's jaw tightened. He had lucid moments. At what time did he give you the ticket? Around 3. Marianne turned a page. Exhibit 13 is a visit note from the hospice nurse, who was present from 2:40 to 3:35 p.m. She states your father was asleep during that interval. Did she fail to mention that you were there? I may have the time wrong. Did you have the date wrong? Rachel looked at her lawyer. Marianne moved on. She showed the gas station footage. Rachel watched herself on the screen, watched Dad beside her, watched him fill out the playslip, watched him pick up the tickets. Is that your father selecting the numbers? Marianne asked. Yes. Is that your father taking possession of the tickets? For a moment. Did he gift you those tickets at the gas station? No. Did he later gift you the winning ticket? Yes. Where was the ticket kept between the gas station purchase and the alleged gift? Rachel paused. I don't know. You don't know where an $18 million winning ticket was kept before your father allegedly gave it to you? We did not know it had won yet, but you knew it was a ticket. Yes. Where did your father usually keep lottery tickets? I'm not sure. That was a lie so small it embarrassed even me. Everyone in our family knew about the recipe box. Marianne produced a photograph of the metal recipe box, taken by me, sitting on Dad's kitchen shelf. Inside were old lottery stubs, grocery coupons, Mom's handwritten recipe for chicken and dumplings, and a folded slip with the winning numbers circled in Dad's handwriting. Rachel's face changed, only for a second, but the court reporter saw it. I saw it. Marianne saw it. Then came the notary journal. Rachel claimed she had no involvement in the waiver. She said Dad arranged it. She said I signed willingly. She said I must have forgotten because the period around Dad's illness was stressful. Marianne placed my school records on the table. Attendance report, principal observation form, digital lesson plan timestamp, security log. At 3:20 p.m. on March 15 of last year, where was Elise Harper? Rachel did not answer. Her lawyer objected to the form of the question. Marianne rephrased. Was Elise Harper present at Thomas Harper's home at 3:20 p.m. on March 15? I don't know. You submitted a notarized waiver claiming she was. I relied on the notary. Did you pay Paul Whitman for notary services? How much? I don't recall. Marianne slid forward a bank record. $3,000? Rachel's lawyer shifted in his chair. The room became very quiet. That was when I understood. Rachel had not made one desperate choice after Dad died. She had built a structure over months, maybe longer, like a false lesson taught carefully enough, repeated often enough, until everyone assumed it was true. But false structures have weak foundations. You just have to find where the weight rests. The final break came from Dad's phone. Marianne subpoenaed text records and cloud backups. Dad had deleted very little because Dad barely understood deletion. On his phone, in a notes app, he had written reminders to himself. Ask Elise about trust. Rachel rushing me. Need copy of ticket. Do not sign when tired. Call Marianne? No. Find attorney. The saddest one was dated 4 days before he died. I think Rachel took box. I cried when I read that. Not loudly, not dramatically. I simply put the paper down and covered my face. For the first time, I let myself feel the full weight of what Dad had been trying to do in his final weeks. Sick, exhausted, frightened of his own daughter, trying to leave crumbs of truth for the daughter he thought might still follow them. The criminal investigation began quietly, after Marianne referred the forged waiver and notary payment to the county prosecutor. The Lottery Commission froze distribution of the winnings. Cedar Mutual froze the trust. Rachel's accounts were reviewed under court order. By then, Rachel's polished life began to show seams. The condo was heavily mortgaged, her consulting business had unpaid judgments, she had borrowed against future commissions, she had been performing stability the way she performed everything else. At mediation, Rachel finally stopped smiling. We sat in separate rooms while attorneys carried offers back and forth. Her first offer was insulting, her second was cleaner. By the 5th hour, after the mediator had reviewed the deposition excerpts and the prosecutor's interest, Rachel agreed to a settlement that restored my share of the trust, paid damages from the frozen lottery proceeds, and relinquished any claim that Dad had gifted her the ticket alone. The lottery prize was treated as part of Dad's estate, subject to court-supervised distribution. The notary pled guilty to a forgery-related charge and agreed to cooperate. Rachel avoided prison at first through a plea agreement involving restitution, probation, surrender of her financial license, and a public admission in civil court that the waiver was invalid and the ticket claim had been false. Some people thought that was too light, maybe it was. But I had learned that justice is not always the same as revenge. Justice, when it is real, creates a record that cannot be politely erased. On the day the probate judge approved the final order, I wore a simple blue dress and the silver watch Dad had given me when I got my first teaching job. Rachel sat 2 rows ahead of me. She did not turn around. The judge spoke in a measured voice. He used words like fiduciary duty, undue influence, fraudulent instrument, equitable distribution, legal words, dry words, but beneath them was something alive. The court recognized what Rachel had tried to bury. Dad had not abandoned me. Mom had not forgotten me. My own name belonged to me. After taxes, fees, restitution, and the estate distribution, I received more money than I ever imagined having. Not 18 million, not the fantasy headline number people whispered about online, but enough to pay off my mortgage, set aside retirement savings, fund scholarships in my parents' names, and breathe without calculating every emergency. The first thing I bought was not a car, it was a new kitchen table. Solid oak, round, big enough for papers, coffee cups, flowers, and the occasional student recommendation letter. I placed it near the window, where morning light falls across the floor. I sold Dad's house a year later, but not quickly. I cleaned it slowly. I kept Mom's recipe cards, Dad's red thermos, the metal recipe box, and the brown jacket from the gas station footage. I planted tulips under the maple tree before the sale closed. I don't know why, maybe I wanted something living to mark the place where so much had been hidden. I stayed a teacher. People expected me to quit, I think. A few even said so. Elise, why keep working? Because work is not only what you do for money, sometimes work is where your soul knows how to stand. The year after the case ended, I taught a unit on primary sources. I brought in copies of old letters, census forms, newspaper clippings, and court records. I told my students that truth is not fragile, but access to it can be. I told them evidence matters because memory can be pressured, grief can be manipulated, and powerful people often depend on everyone else being too tired to read the fine print. One student raised her hand and asked, "Miss Harper, do you think people always get caught when they lie?" I looked at the rows of young faces in front of me. "No," I said, "but lies create homework, and sometimes someone does it." I did not tell them everything. They did not need to know my family's pain. But I think they heard something in my voice, because the room stayed quiet in that rare way classrooms sometimes do when students understand they are being trusted with more than a lesson. Rachel and I have not repaired what broke. I do not hate her. Hate requires a kind of daily devotion I am not willing to give. But I also do not confuse forgiveness with access. She sends a card every Christmas with no return address. I read it once, then put it away. Maybe one day she will tell the truth without needing to benefit from it. Maybe she will not. I have learned to let that be her assignment, not mine. 3 summers after Dad died, I took a train to Vermont by myself. I stayed in a small inn with blue shutters, drank coffee on a porch, and walked through a farmer's market where nobody knew my name. I bought a packet of seeds from an old woman who told me they were stubborn flowers. "Good," I said. "I understand those. Now they grow in my garden every spring. Sometimes when I water them, I think about that gas station camera, how ordinary it was. Mounted in a corner, recording coffee purchases and fuel receipts, never knowing it would become the witness my father needed. I think about Mr. Kessler choosing decency over comfort. I think about Marianne and her yellow legal pads. I think about Dad, sick and frightened, still trying to leave a trail. Most of all, I think about the version of myself Rachel underestimated. She thought calm meant weak. She thought kindness meant easy to erase. She thought because I taught history, I lived in the past. But history taught me how to survive the present. I did not win because I was fearless. I was afraid almost every day. I was afraid when I opened the envelope. Afraid when Rachel called. Afraid in the deposition room. Afraid when strangers online called me greedy without knowing a single true thing about me. I was not brave. I was careful. And sometimes careful is enough. Money changed parts of my life, yes. It gave me safety. It gave me choices. It allowed me to help students who reminded me of myself at 17, pretending not to worry about grocery bills. It allowed me to sleep at night without counting disaster before it arrived. But money was never the real inheritance. The real inheritance was the truth. The truth that my father tried to protect me. The truth that my mother had planned for both her daughters. The truth that my signature could be stolen, but my voice could not. The truth has a weight of its own. It may sit hidden behind a furnace, folded inside an envelope, trapped in a security camera reflection, or buried in a line of bank records. But once it is lifted into the light, it changes the room. If there is one thing I want you to take from my story, it is this: when someone rushes you, slow down. When someone flatters you, listen carefully. When someone says, "Trust me," ask for the document. And when your own life starts to feel confusing, make a timeline. Write things down. Keep the receipt. Save the message. Take the picture. Not because you expect betrayal, because your peace is worth protecting. I lost the sister I thought I had. I lost the last innocent version of my family. But I gained something I did not know I was still allowed to have. A quiet life that belongs to me. A garden full of stubborn flowers. A classroom where truth still matters. And a kitchen table where no one gets to decide who I am except me. What would you have done if your own sister claimed a fortune your father never truly gave her? Would you have fought quietly, walked away for peace, or confronted her from the beginning? Let me know in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, please like, share, and subscribe, because somewhere out there, someone may need the reminder that being calm does not mean being powerless.